Welcome to Chalk Talk. I'm Kim Davis here at the fabulous Trinity Restaurant in Montrose, Houston. We're going to talk sports and we're going to talk food. You're going to see some great food today, and we're going to also have some great conversation. You see, I think sports is one of those times that people can be on the same page regardless of gender, ethnicity, or money. But if you can't speak the language, you're left out of the conversation. So I created Chalk Talk to help people, especially women, become conversational about sports. Stick around. We're going to have a lot of fun. So let's meet my guests for the first segment. I have three really cool women who have been kind enough to join me. We're going to start with Stacy Fielder-August, who is closest to me. She is a host of a show called The Playbook. She has a nonprofit. She's got a whole lot going on. And she is the mother of a pretty well-known baseball player, Prince Fielder. I was about to say Cecil Fielder, that's her ex-husband. But she also has some questions about really what is sports all about. You would think she knows it all. So thank you, Stacy, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And then there's Karen McCullough, one of my favorite people also. She is a keynote and motivational speaker, but she's a whole lot more than that. She can talk to you about Gen X, Gen Y, marketing, what people need, what the trends are in industries, and just a bundle of energy. So thank you. She wants to know about how can she like football, and so hopefully today you'll like it a little bit more.
Thank you.
And then Nakia Nishal, who is an author and a soon-to-be filmmaker, who is kind enough to join us. She's an accountant by trade, but we're not going to talk about that. And she has a son who plays high school football, and she says she has no idea what's happening when she is at the game. So welcome to Chalk Talk. Don't be nervous. Stacy, you have been to a tailgate party, so you kind of know how this works.
Yes, yes.
So I want to start with any questions any of you have. We'll start with you, Nakia, about, let's say, football, because that's your big thing. What happens at the football game?
I'm kind of texting because I'm not in the game like everybody else. They know what's going on. I'm quite confused.
Okay, so what is it that confuses you?
It's the plays.
Okay.
I get the play, and then after that, the ref throws a flag.
Okay.
That's it for me.
Okay, so here's the thing, and I have some playbooks that I'm going to give you ladies a little bit later that will help you with that. So at the end of a play, there's not always a flag. There's only a flag when there's a penalty. So somebody has done something wrong, right?
How do you know, though?
Because there's a flag.
Right.
The flag means penalty.
Right.
So just remember, there's a flag, there's a penalty. So when there's a flag, I'm going to look and see what the ref says. At an NFL game, you can hear him on a microphone.
Right.
And at a college game. But at a high school game, you probably won't hear him. You're going to see him make some kind of hand signal. That hand signal will tell you what the penalty is. I'm going to give you a playbook that has a guide, if you will, of all of those plays. And it will help you understand it. But one of the things I always say to people, especially women, is we like stories.
Yes.
So before you go to a game, maybe you pick out one or two players that you know something about. So you're kind of watching them throughout the game. You have something that makes you connect. For you, it's your son, you know him. Mm-hmm. So, you know, how does your son play? What's he doing? You know how he prepared for the game, right? So you're interested because it's your son.
Right.
But Karen, you're not that interested, right?
Well, I liked what you just said about following, because that's kind of how I decided I wanted to get into football this year. Mm-hmm. Right now, all the hype is on TV. I can't really even follow the player. Like, where does he go?
So don't really worry about all that.
Okay.
Okay, so before the game, let's say you watch the Texans. This is really easy. So J.J. Watt.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay,
right.
He's number 99. And when the defense is on the field, they're going to call his number a lot. So find out before the game, read a couple things about J.J. Watt. What did he do during the week? I mean, there'll be some interviews with him. There'll be something where people are talking about who this J.J. Watts guy is every week. So now you're watching him because you kind of know him. And they'll call his name. You go, oh, yeah, I know him. So
right.
You're not interested really more in him.
I like this.
Yeah.
So should you pick a new player every week?
If that helps you, do whatever makes it easy for you. Pick a new player. You may have favorite players or favorite teams or coaches that kind of evolve during the season. But find something that makes you interesting. Here's something else you should do. Watch the first 45 seconds of SportsCenter. You don't have to watch the whole SportsCenter.
Okay.
Get the headlines. See what's big in sports that week, so that you can understand. Here, they're gonna run SportsCenter 12 times in a day. Okay. So just watch the opening, pick out a couple things, and so now you have something that you can even talk about when you're around people that are talking about sports.
No.
Highlights. There's 30 seconds at the beginning of the show.
You know,
Go ahead, sir.
you know, like when you talk about the highlights, somebody has been in sports industry for almost 30 years. I always look for the softer issues. I have an ex-husband who played, and now my son plays. So being that connected personally, baseball even became something that I learned to love because it was feeding me, and of course now I still got a lot of skin in the game. But it wasn't a favorite sport of mine. If I were to go to a football game, and I just short of me clapping because they made a touchdown.
Right.
What is a question and an answer, just one, that I might be able to ask and answer?
Okay.
That will make me sound smart.
Okay.
In
I like
football,
that. I
in
like this.
baseball,
Okay.
or in the
like that
NBA.
So here's something we're going to do. So let's talk Texans, because we're here in Houston.
Okay.
So one of the things we hear a lot about the Texans, let's talk about defense, because we mentioned J.J. Watt.
Okay.
So the Texans play what's called a 3-4 defense. Okay.
Okay.
So 3-4 is the kind of defensive scheme they have. Okay. So the question may be, well, I know they play a 3-4 defense.
Okay.
Who's the main linebacker?
That's the question.
That's the question.
Okay.
Don't ask anything else.
Okay.
And then be quiet and listen.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Because I'm not going to even go into what that means, three guys up front, 4 linebackers, but 3-4. What is it, 3-4 D? Who's a linebacker I should watch?
Okay.
Okay.
So that's something.
Okay.
And here's the thing that you can say about the offense. Man, I know Arian Foster was out all of preseason. I hope he's productive when the season starts.
Okay.
Okay? That means you know that he was hurt. But here's the thing, don't say anything else, don't say too much, stop there and smile.
So in gathering that information, though, Kim, the first 30, 40 seconds of...
You're not going to get that from sports.
Oh.
That's just to talk about in general, what's
Okay.
happening, what the big stories are. Then you text me and I'll tell you what they mean.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right?
There you go.
3-4
All right.
defense.
And how many linebackers are on it?
Yeah.
It depends on the defense they
Okay.
play. See, now you're
Okay.
asking too much.
Oh,
okay.
Don't do
well,
too much.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Okay.
that
But
one.
how
okay.
do I identify the linebacker?
That's another good question. I'll help you with that.
Yeah.
We're out of time for right now,
Okay.
but
Okay.
you're going to follow me on Twitter, and you're going to come to my next tailgate party, and we can spend more time helping you know which players are the linebackers.
This
All
is
right.
great. Thank
Okay.
you, Kim.
All right, thank you so much
Thank
for being
you.
here. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and talk with Butch Woolfolk, one of my other favorite people on the planet. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Chalk Talk. I'm Kim Davis, and now I am joined by one of my favorite people on the planet, Butch Woolfolk. Butch is a retired NFL player. He's really kind of modest, but he was a first-round pick of the New York Giants back in the day. And I met Butch when he played for the Houston Oilers. We then went on to write for the Houston Post. Boy, am I dating myself. And we have a gumbo story that we're going to share. But Butch, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Butch and I actually even used to co-host a radio show.
It was a long time ago. Yeah, we did that back.
I mean,
in
I was 12, but
yeah, right, right. I think that was in 19.
That's okay. That's okay.
I won't say
That's
it.
okay.
All
Yeah.
right. Yeah, we had a great time though.
So whenever I want to talk about football and have somebody who can talk about stuff that happens on the field as well as off the field with me, I always like to go to Butch because he has a really interesting perspective. So one of the first things that I want to talk about before we talk Texans is this recent settlement with the NFL and former players. I immediately thought of you when I saw that settlement come in.
Because you think I'm suffering from dementia or something?
Not dementia, but I know
Okay.
you got some injuries. We've talked about it over the years.
Well, believe it or not, this settlement, people are kind of confused about it.
Right.
The $765 million is strictly for cognitive
Concussion,
problems
right.
and concussions. And we know that every year, only about 7% of the NFL injuries are from concussions. So you're talking about a very select few retired players that are suffering from that, guys that have had injuries in the past, and some guys have even died. Their families are going to be compensated, but the retired players are not going to be compensated as a whole, no.
So let me say this. One of the things you and I have talked about over the years, you played in the league, you retired, you have a fabulous wife, Regina, who we all love. You've had health insurance, but you can't get covered because of your NFL injuries, right?
Right. I've had 2 back surgeries, a shoulder surgery, and a couple of knee injuries, and trying to get coverage from a regular employee benefits, you just can't get it.
So what does a former player do for insurance or for health benefits?
Take a lot of pain pills.
Wow.
And as far as health benefits, you can't really get coverage. I'm covered under my wife, and she works with a company here in Houston, so I'm covered with her. But other than that, I couldn't get it without her.
Wow. So for those who think that this whole football thing is not that physical, your body takes. I mean, you look like you could still play. I mean, I'm just saying.
Thank you,
you
Kim.
look like you could still play. I mean, I know you're a little vain with the whole 5-pound weight range, but.
No, I try to stay in shape. In fact, that's one of the things that former ball players can do on their own. You know, you see a guy that played at 220 pounds, and all of a sudden now he's 300 pounds.
Right.
He's hurting himself. So if I can maintain my shape a little bit, then I know that I'm going to benefit myself in the long run.
So one of the things that I want to talk about while we're talking sports is food, okay? That's why we're here at this restaurant, Trinity Restaurant.
Looks good.
And they have this great garden toast. I'm going to tell you what's in it because I'm going to try to make it. It's bok choy, baby corn, beach mushroom, lotus root, edamame, peanuts, and sesame pesto. So I know you know me as a foodie because...
You going to try to make that?
I'm sure that they make it better here, but the reason you really like me is because of what?
Gumbo.
The gumbo.
The gumbo.
So let me tell you this funny story. So Butch and I work together, and I make gumbo. You know, I'm a really good cook. Let me just say that.
Absolutely.
So Butch had the gumbo once at one of my birthday parties, and he said, "Hey, you should come over and make it for my wife and I, one day." And I said, "Sure, you buy the stuff, I'll make it." So we stopped by he goes, "Today." So we stopped by the grocery store. We go home. I'm in the kitchen. I'm like making gumbo. His wife comes home from work, and he goes, "Oh, hey, honey, this is Kim." Really? That's how cool his wife is. And we have all been friends.
And they're best of friends since then.
But that's how I met your wife.
Yeah, it was cool.
Let's talk about the Texans. You know, we're here in Houston.
Right.
You know, you play. We'll make this kind of quick, but do you have a prediction for what they'll do this year?
I'm very excited. I feel the buzz all throughout the city. I don't think that the Houston fans have had this type of excitement since the Love You Blue days.
Yeah.
I mean, there are only about 3 or 4 teams in the NFL that have no weaknesses. And Denver and maybe Green Bay and the Texans, of course.
Right.
We have no weaknesses. We filled every gap in the offseason.
You
the
say
players
no
are ready.
weaknesses, really?
Well, you name a weakness.
So I'm going to name a weakness, and we're going to go to a break and come back.
Okay.
I'm going to say our weakness is Matt Schaub. We're going to take a break.
Oh,
we're going to come right back. Welcome back to Chalk Talk. I have to get back to Butch. I'm going to let you talk about it. I know I kind of got you on the going to Matt Schaub before the break, but I think it's this good smelling garden toast that's, I get kind of thrown off when I'm around good food. Matt Schaub's a great quarterback.
Right.
Great in terms of stats and numbers. I'm just not convinced that he can take the Texans to a Super Bowl. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it's not just him that's going to get him to the Super Bowl. I mean, you have probably the best defensive lineman in the league.
Right.
You probably have one of the top 5 linebackers in Cushing. And on the offensive side, obviously the best receiver in the league and one of the top 3 running backs.
Right.
So I think what we have is a complete team.
Right.
And that
I
complete
think they're
team,
one of the elite teams, definitely.
And that's what's going to
elite.
get us to the Super Bowl. Matt Schaub can't put us on his back himself and do it.
He can't put you on his back. He can't put them on his back.
Right.
But he also can't be the reason when it gets to clutch time. So let me ask you this. You play the game. So you're lined up. It's the AFC Championship game. There's the Houston Texans with Matt Schaub and all that group that you mentioned.
Right.
And there's the Denver Broncos with Peyton Manning. Who do you pick?
Well,
I know there's a lot. Who's injured, who's healthy?
I'm going to go down with the Texans. I'm going to go down with Matt Schaub. Because why? Because he's all we have. We don't have.
Well, that's true. That's a very good point.
We don't have anybody else over there that can do it, a better job. So I'm stuck with him. And I believe in the team, and I'm sold on the team. I'm a Houston fan.
Okay.
And we're going to make it.
Well, I hope you're right, because that makes it so much fun for the city. So there's some exciting themes. There's Ed Reed, who looks like he
hasn't played yet.
Who hasn't played
you know.
yet, but any little bit of Ed Reed, a fraction of what he's able to do is a lot for this already very tenacious
Opposing
defense.
wide receivers do not want to come across the middle with him.
Right, and so you mentioned linebackers. Brian Cushing's very exciting, but you have to admit that the outside linebacker spot is a little questionable. Weak side is a little questionable. Is Whitney Merciless going to be healthy this year?
I saw him play in Illinois, and he's an awesome ball player.
That was in college.
But I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. I saw
the skill
his
set
skill.
is there.
Is he going to be healthy?
Yeah,
That's the key.
well,
That's the key.
You can say that with any team in the
I
league.
know.
Any
I
player.
like him. I hope he
Yeah.
is. I mean, I hope the Texans do well. But those are things that concern me. But it is going to be exciting to watch.
Come on board, jump on a
I
bandwagon.
am, but I have to be objective,
Okay,
right?
I understand.
So we will. They are an elite team.
Yeah.
I will give them that. So let's talk a little bit about college.
Okay.
And the state of college football. You are a Michigan guy.
Go blue.
Sorry, I'm an Aggie.
Yeah.
So you can't really talk about me being an Aggie and not talk about Johnny Football. Is too much being made about him?
Kevin Sumlin, I got a chance to meet him. He came to our
Great
country
guy.
club, and he's a really nice guy. He's going to fix the problems with Johnny Football.
Really?
I mean, the fact that he set him down the last few plays and he gave him a stern tongue lashing on the sidelines, that's exactly what Johnny needs. He's going to be okay.
So one of the things I think is important that people should know is coaching football, especially college players, is a lot like parenting, right?
Absolutely.
Some would say babysitting. I think that happens more in the NFL.
Right.
But on the college level, what you said is really key. I don't think that Johnny Football has really had many people in his life tell him no before.
Right. He's an excellent talent. He plays kind of that backyard football, which I don't particularly like. I like more structured.
What do you say backyard football?
I mean, whatever the play is, it doesn't matter.
Right.
He'll break off and do whatever he wants and sling it and run. I mean,
Do you think he can read defenses?
I don't think he necessarily has to.
But do you think but do you think because a lot of times quarterbacks are criticized for not being able to read defenses. Do you
Right.
think he's able to?
Well, the offensive line, he had one of the offensive linemen went in the first round and
right.
got another one that's just as good next year. So he's got time in the pocket to throw the ball. So he doesn't have to really read defense. He can just see the guys getting open.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Butch, as always, thank you for being here. I
Thank you.
owe you a pot of gumbo. I'll come out to the house
I'll
and
be
make it for
expecting
you
it
and your
tonight.
wife. And we will see you again on Chalk Talk.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Stick around. We're going to come right back with our Chewing the Fat segment back after this. And welcome back to Chalk Talk for our final segment. And I am so excited to have Wayne Davis, no relation, who is the owner of Hardcore Pilates, a trainer and a former long jumper. And we'll tell you about how he got into having his business, Hardcore Pilates. And a dear friend, Pastor Rudy, he's also my pastor. And he is a foodie who really knows nothing about sports. So this is the perfect way for us to end our first show. So first we got to start with what we have today. So we're at Trinity Restaurant. Let me get my glasses and tell you, this is the Eye of Ribeye. It's potato mosaic, spring onion yogurt vinaigrette, marrow chip, and wild mushrooms. Now, Pastor Rudy, you're a big foodie. Have you ever seen that before? You had it?
I've never seen that combination, ever.
Right, so I don't eat beef, but it looks really interesting and fancy.
Interesting and fancy, I think, are understatements. So yeah, it's good stuff.
So first, thank you guys for being here. When I say I'm doing a sports show, you're both like, yeah, really? So I'm going to start with you, Wayne. One of the things that you and I talk a lot about, other than the fact that you're supposed to make me thin and beautiful and you're falling way behind. Okay?
But you're a foodie. You are a foodie.
I am. I don't eat that, but I'm a foodie.
Right.
And I love Trinity. Have great food here. There's a lot of injuries so far in the NFL season. A lot of injuries, ACLs.
Right.
People out for the season in training camp.
Right.
And one of the things you talk about when you work with athletes is that they don't train from the inside out. What does that mean?
Right. Well, basically, you know, as an athlete or when you're an athlete going through your training, you do a lot of weights, you do a lot of working the large muscle groups, your biceps, your legs, your back. But we really don't focus on working the small muscle groups, which are the tendons, those small stabilizers that connect those big muscle groups.
So does Hardcore Pilates, am I doing that?
Yes, you're doing that.
Okay.
You're doing that. You're solid, so no injuries for you.
Yeah,
But no,
I'm not trying to compete, but I do want to be able to still move around a lot.
Right, right.
And so, Pastor Rudy, we talk about from the inside out, and I know that you have counseled and pastored a lot of people from all walks of life, and even athletes. And so that inside out piece is something that you can speak to from a different perspective.
Yeah, first of all, I'm working on the small muscle groups.
Got you.
And yeah, I think when we think about being whole, it is both internal and external.
Right.
It is both spiritual and physical. And connecting the two makes the difference in how you see the world and how you live in it. It really does.
So one of the things that happens a lot, in whether you are big into sports or not, you can't help but see it in news, on TV, stories about athletes' lives, and what they are doing and what they aren't doing, and whether it's good or bad. And so one of the things I've always said is that a lot of times athletes are not really taught how to be grown-ups. They're taught how to be athletes, and then they're like, go into the world and be a grown-up, and here's a bunch of money. And the fallout from that is devastating. Physically,
yes,
because they're not really taking care of their body, and emotionally, because they're not taking care of their minds.
Right, right.
And that takes a, you know, with the financial resources at their disposal, that takes an extra degree of focus and concentration. Money is a huge distraction, and there's nothing like millions to help a person look the other way in terms of their soul and even the mind, for sure, for certain.
So Wayne, you probably also noticed that maybe sometimes guys who are really financially set are not taking as good a care of their bodies because they just are so used to being able to get by.
Yeah, most definitely. Because that's been the way they have trained their whole life. Like, for instance, you get a lot of football guys who they eat a lot of food, but they're out there working every day. And then after they either get injured or have to retire, they're still eating the same way, but they're not as active as they was before. So now, where it was 230 in his prime, now he's 340, going on pushing 400, and wondering, how did I get here? But he's steady eating the same.
And that, of course, then will drive him probably crazy. All right, we are out of time for today, but thank you both so much for being here, going on the edge, being a part of a sports show. I told you it would be harmless. I really appreciate your insight. And thank you for joining us. This is it for Chalk Talk. We'll be back with more down the road. Stay tuned. Also, follow me online and on Twitter at Kim Y. Davis. Yeah.